During a video call with my son-in-law while he was on a business trip, I saw a woman wearing his shirt. The woman hadn't looked like housekeeping. She'd looked like someone getting ready for bed. Someone who knew exactly where everything was in that room. Someone wearing the shirt of a man she'd clearly spent time undressing. Have you ever caught someone red-handed without them knowing you saw? Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family, enjoy the story. If you've ever wondered how one innocent video call could destroy a family's entire foundation, this story will shake you to your core. Have you ever caught someone red-handed without them knowing you saw? Has someone you trusted ever shown you their betrayal by pure accident? Do you know what it feels like when your gut tells you something's wrong, but everyone else thinks you're crazy? I'm about to show you how a grandmother's protective instincts and a Christmas shirt expose the most calculated betrayal I've ever encountered. Follow along as we uncover secrets that were buried so deep, they nearly destroyed 3 generations of women. This isn't just about cheating. This is about financial theft, legal fraud, and how one mother's detective work saved her daughter from losing everything she'd ever worked for. She was wearing his Christmas shirt. The one I picked out, wrapped, and watched him open 3 months ago. My cursor froze over the end call button. I had just wanted to check in. Marcus was supposed to be alone in Dallas on another one of his business trips, and I figured I'd see how he was settling into his hotel. Maybe catch a glimpse of the room, make sure he was comfortable. My daughter Emma had asked me to keep an eye on him since he'd been traveling so much lately. The laptop screen showed Marcus sitting at a hotel desk, papers scattered around him, looking professional as always. He was talking about some client meeting, his voice carrying that confident tone that made Emma fall for him 6 years ago. Everything seemed normal. Then she walked by. A woman in a white cotton shirt, his white cotton shirt. The exact one I'd found at Macy's, the one with the subtle blue threading that I thought brought out his eyes. The one Emma had wrapped so carefully on Christmas morning while the kids tore through their presents. She moved casually behind him, like she belonged there. Like walking around in someone else's husband's clothes was the most natural thing in the world. Her dark hair was loose around her shoulders, and she carried herself with the easy comfort of someone who'd done this walk 100 times before. Marcus's face went white. Not embarrassed white. Caught white. His hand shot toward the camera, adjusting the angle quickly, cutting off the view behind him. Mom, hey, sorry about that. Housekeeping, you know how it is. His laugh sounded hollow, forced. They come in at the strangest times. But I'd seen enough. The woman hadn't looked like housekeeping. She'd looked like someone getting ready for bed. Someone who knew exactly where everything was in that room. Someone wearing the shirt of a man she'd clearly spent time undressing. Of course, honey, I said, keeping my voice steady. You look tired. You should get some rest. Yeah, big day tomorrow. Tell Emma and the kids I said goodnight. If someone you trusted showed you their betrayal by accident, would you speak up immediately, or start gathering proof? Subscribe so you don't miss how this mother chose to protect her daughter's future. I didn't hang up right away. I took a screenshot. Then I noticed something else, the hotel room number visible on his key card lying next to his phone. Room 447. After the call ended, I sat in my kitchen for 20 minutes, staring at that screenshot. The woman's face was partially visible, enough to see she was young, pretty, comfortable. The shirt hung loose on her smaller frame, but it was definitely his. I'd touched that fabric a dozen times while ironing it for family dinners. My hands shook as I opened a new document on my computer. At the top, I typed, March 15th, video call with Marcus, 8:47 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Below that, I wrote, unknown woman in his hotel room wearing Christmas shirt I purchased December 2023. Emma was upstairs giving the kids their baths. She was humming some silly song they'd learned at school, completely unaware that her world had just shifted. My grandbabies were splashing and laughing, trusting that Daddy was working hard in Dallas to provide for their future. They had no idea Daddy was building a different kind of future entirely. Pause and think. Would you tell your daughter immediately, or investigate first? Room 447, Marriott, downtown Dallas. The receipt in my email showed check-in for 2 guests. He'd told my daughter he was traveling alone. I'd helped Emma and Marcus set up their joint email account 3 years ago when they bought the house. For family stuff, Emma had said. Bills, school forms, travel confirmations. She'd added me as a backup contact on most accounts after their first baby was born, just in case anything happened to either of them. Now I was grateful for that access. The hotel confirmation email sat in my inbox like evidence in a court case. Arrival March 14th, departure March 17th. 2 adults, 1 king bed. The billing address matched their Ohio home, but the total cost was nearly double what Marcus usually spent on business trips. I clicked through to his expense reports, another document Emma had shared with me when I helped them organize their taxes last year. Every other Dallas trip showed economy bookings, standard rates. This one showed suite upgrades, room service for 2, spa charges. Men don't book spa treatments for business meetings. My coffee went cold as I cross-referenced the dates. Every business trip in the past 6 months had the same pattern. Extended stays, upgrade fees, double meal charges. The travel had started small, overnight trips to Cleveland, weekend conferences in Chicago. Now he was gone 3 days at a time, sometimes longer. Emma thought he was working extra hard for their family. She'd even bragged to her sister about how dedicated Marcus was, how he was building his client base to secure their future. I opened another tab and searched for his company's website. The client roster showed mostly Ohio-based businesses. No major Dallas connections that would require regular travel. I clicked through press releases, company news, staff updates. Nothing about expanding Texas operations. My stomach dropped further when I found his LinkedIn profile. Under recent activity, he'd been connecting with Dallas professionals, real estate agents, mortgage brokers. One name appeared frequently in his network updates, Jessica Martinez, senior analyst at Henderson Financial Group. I clicked her profile. Pretty, mid-30s, recently moved to Dallas from Ohio. Her employment history showed she'd started at Henderson 6 months ago, right when Marcus's travel schedule increased. Her relationship status had changed 3 months ago from single to it's complicated. The same month he'd gotten that Christmas shirt. I screenshotted everything. Her profile, the hotel receipts, the expense reports, the company roster. Each image got saved with a timestamp and a brief note. If this was heading where I thought it was heading, Emma would need every piece of evidence I could gather. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. Marcus called. He's having such a great trip. Says the client meetings are going amazing. Love you, Mom. Ever discovered something you wished you could unsee? What's your next move? The irony was crushing. Emma was proud of her husband's success while I was documenting his betrayal. She was planning their anniversary dinner while I was building a case file. I typed back, "That's wonderful, sweetheart. Give the kids a kiss from Grandma." Then I opened a new browser tab and searched, Henderson Financial Group Dallas office directory. Jessica Martinez's name was right there, along with her direct phone number and office address. The booking confirmation had 2 names. His, and Jessica M. The same Jessica from his company directory I'd seen at their anniversary party last year. LinkedIn doesn't lie. Jessica Martinez, senior analyst, hired 6 months ago. The same month his business trips started getting longer. I remembered her now. She'd been at Emma and Marcus's anniversary party last spring, back when she was still working in Ohio. Petite, confident, wearing a red dress that made her stand out in the crowd. She'd introduced herself as Marcus's new colleague, fresh from college, excited about the opportunities at Henderson Financial. Emma had been kind to her, as always. Asked about her family, her move to the city, whether she was settling in okay. Marcus had barely acknowledged her that night, but I'd noticed how his eyes found her across the room when Emma wasn't looking. Now Jessica's social media told a different story entirely. Her Instagram showed a carefully curated Dallas lifestyle. Expensive restaurants, weekend trips to Austin, photos of a furnished apartment that looked far beyond a new analyst's salary. But it was the timing of her posts that made my blood run cold. Every photo lined up perfectly with Marcus's travel schedule. March 10th, Jessica at a steakhouse downtown. Marcus's expense report. Dinner meeting with Dallas client. February 28th, Jessica's weekend in San Antonio. Marcus's calendar, extended client consultation, unavailable for family calls. February 14th, Jessica posting about the most romantic Valentine's Day ever, with a photo of roses and champagne. No man in the picture, but Marcus had told Emma he was stuck in meetings that entire day. I scrolled back through 6 months of posts. The pattern was unmistakable. Every business trip, every late night, every weekend Marcus claimed to be working, Jessica's social media showed someone celebrating, traveling, living like she had unlimited resources and a secret boyfriend. Miss one social media clue, and the truth stays buried for years. Subscribe, future episodes show you exactly what to look for. But the real shock came when I found her apartment lease through a public record search. The address matched one of her tagged locations, a high-end complex in downtown Dallas. The lease was recent, signed 4 months ago, with a deposit that should have been impossible on her salary. The lease had a co-signer, Robert Martinez. Not Marcus Martinez. Robert Martinez. But when I cross-referenced the signature, something felt familiar about the handwriting. I pulled out Marcus's holiday card from last year, the one he'd signed for Emma and the kids. The R in Robert had the same distinctive loop as the M in Marcus. The Z in Martinez matched perfectly with his signature style. He hadn't just co-signed her lease. He'd co-signed it under a false name. My hands trembled as I screenshotted the lease documents. This wasn't just an affair anymore. This was identity fraud, financial deception on a level that could destroy Emma legally and financially. I created a new folder on my desktop, Evidence, Marcus Investigation. Inside, I organized everything by date and category. Hotel receipts, social media posts, lease documents, expense reports, LinkedIn connections. Emma deserved to know, but she also deserved protection. If Marcus was willing to use fake names on legal documents, what else was he capable of? Her apartment lease had a co-signer. Someone with the same last name as my son-in-law, but it wasn't him. Screenshot that detail in your mind. Family connections run deeper than romance. The next morning, I called my daughter. Emma, honey, do you happen to know if Marcus has any family in Texas? No, Mom. You know his family's all in Ohio, just like ours. Why? Just curious about his business contacts down there. He seems to be spending so much time in Dallas lately. I know. He's working so hard for us. I'm just grateful he's found such good opportunities. I closed my eyes, holding back everything I wanted to say. I'm sure he has, sweetheart. The bank statement showed transfers I'd never seen before. Small amounts, but regular. Like paying rent somewhere else. Emma had given me access to their family accounts when their second baby was born. Just in case something happens to both of us, she'd said. Someone needs to be able to take care of the kids' needs. It was a practical decision from a responsible mother, but now it felt like divine intervention. Every month for the past 4 months, Marcus had been transferring exactly $1,847 from their joint savings to an account I didn't recognize. The transfers happened like clockwork, always on the 15th, always the same amount. When I called the bank's customer service line, they confirmed it was going to a Wells Fargo account in Dallas. $1,847 was specific. Not a round number like someone might send to help a friend. It was calculated, precise. Like a monthly payment. I pulled up rental listings for Jessica's apartment complex. 1-bedroom unit started at $1,800 per month, plus utilities. The math was perfect and damning. Marcus wasn't just having an affair. He was financially supporting a second household while his wife and children lived off the remaining income. Emma had been cutting coupons and shopping sales, thinking they needed to save money for the kids' future. Meanwhile, her husband was funding another woman's lifestyle. But the transfers were just the beginning. I found a second account, one opened 3 months ago that Emma didn't know existed. The statements showed deposits from Marcus's salary, then immediate transfers to various Dallas area businesses. A furniture store, a jewelry shop, a high-end electronics retailer. Someone was building a complete life in Texas, fully funded by my daughter's family money. The jewelry store charge was dated February 12. 2 days before Jessica's most romantic Valentine's Day ever post. My throat tightened as I calculated the total. In 4 months, Marcus had diverted nearly $15,000 from his family's accounts. Money that should have gone to the kids' college funds, to Emma's emergency savings, to the mortgage payments she'd been stretching to cover. Emma had mentioned struggling with daycare costs last month. She'd even asked if I could help with groceries while Marcus was working so hard to build their future. I'd given her $200 from my own limited retirement savings, money I couldn't really spare. Now I knew why she was struggling. Marcus wasn't building their future. He was systematically dismantling it to build someone else's. The final piece arrived when I searched Arizona property records on a hunch. Property transfers often show up in public databases, and something about Jessica's confident lifestyle suggested this went beyond rent payments. I was right. A deed filed 6 weeks ago showed a condominium purchase in Scottsdale. Purchase price, $340,000. Primary buyer, Marcus Thompson. Co-buyer, Jessica Martinez. Not Marcus and Emma Thompson. Marcus and Jessica. My son-in-law had bought property with another woman using what I could only assume was money taken from his legal family. The down payment alone would have been $68,000, money that should have belonged to Emma and the children. Ever had numbers tell you a story you didn't want to hear? What would you do with this evidence? Arizona property records showed a deed filed 2 months ago. My son-in-law's name, with someone else as joint owner. I printed everything. Bank statements, property records, transfer receipts, account summaries. The paper trail was extensive and clear. Marcus wasn't just cheating on Emma, he was stealing from her, building a secret life with assets that legally belonged to his family. Emma was going to need more than emotional support. She was going to need a lawyer. Margaret had been my daughter's friend since college. She also happened to be a paralegal. When I called her, she didn't sound surprised. I was wondering when you'd reach out, Margaret said over coffee at the little cafe downtown. Emma mentioned Marcus has been traveling a lot lately. She seemed stressed about money, but she kept saying how hard he was working. I slid the folder across the table. Bank statements, hotel receipts, property records, social media screenshots. 6 months of evidence organized by date and category. Margaret opened it slowly, her professional expression shifting as she read. This isn't just cheating, she said after reviewing the financial transfers. This is systematic asset diversion. In Ohio, this counts as marital misconduct with financial consequences. Margaret had seen cases like this before. Husbands who built secret lives while their wives struggled to pay bills. The legal term was dissipation of marital assets, and it could impact divorce settlements significantly. The property purchase is the biggest problem, she explained, pointing to the Arizona deed. That down payment came from marital funds. Emma has legal claim to half that property, whether she knows it exists or not. She flipped through the evidence again, making notes on her legal pad. We need to move carefully here. If Marcus realizes Emma knows, he could transfer more assets or hide accounts we haven't found yet. Margaret outlined a strategy. First, freeze the joint accounts to prevent further transfers. Second, hire a forensic accountant to trace all hidden assets. Third, file for temporary spousal support and custody protection before Marcus could react. The fake name on Jessica's lease is concerning too, she added. That suggests he's comfortable with identity fraud. We need to check if he's opened any other accounts under false information. They ignored the warning signs and lost everything. Subscribe to recognize the legal traps before they close. I felt relief washing over me for the first time in days. Having Margaret validate my concerns made the evidence feel real, actionable. I wasn't just a paranoid mother-in-law anymore. I was a grandmother protecting her family with solid legal backing. How long do we have? I asked. If he's planning to transfer the Ohio house like you suspect, probably not long. Men like this usually move fast once they think they have everything in place. Margaret pulled out her phone and scrolled through her contacts. I know a family law attorney who specializes in hidden asset cases. Sarah Chen. She's expensive, but she's worth it. She dialed the number right there at the table. Sarah? It's Margaret. I have a client who needs immediate consultation. Hidden property, asset diversion, possible identity fraud. Can you see us tomorrow? The appointment was set for 2 p.m. the following day. Margaret would prepare a case summary overnight. I would gather any additional evidence I could find. What about Emma? I asked. When do we tell her? Margaret's face softened. Soon. But we need to be strategic about timing. She'll need to be emotionally ready for what comes next, and we need to have legal protections in place first. I nodded, understanding but hating it. Another day of watching my daughter live in ignorance while I carried the weight of her husband's betrayal. Margaret's face went pale reading the property deed. This isn't just cheating, she said. This is asset theft. Tag a friend who'd drop everything to help you gather evidence like this. The property photos showed a fully furnished condo. Wedding pictures, but not from my daughter's wedding. Sarah Chen's office was all business. Clean lines, law books, certificates covering one wall. She reviewed our evidence with the cold efficiency of someone who'd seen this pattern too, man. Your instincts were right to document everything, she said, spreading the papers across her conference table. This level of financial deception usually indicates deeper fraud. She pulled up the Arizona property listing on her computer. The condo was beautiful, modern kitchen, mountain views, upgraded appliances. The kind of place Emma had always dreamed of living. Marcus had bought it for someone else using money that belonged to his legal family. But the photos told an even darker story. The living room showed a couple's life together. 2 coffee cups on the counter. His and hers bathrobes hanging in the bathroom doorway. A bookshelf filled with books that Emma had never read, decorative items she'd never chosen. And there, on the mantel, wedding photos in silver frames. I stared at the screen, my stomach dropping to my shoes. Marcus in a black tuxedo, standing next to Jessica in a white dress. Not a big wedding, it looked like a courthouse ceremony or maybe a small chapel. But definitely a wedding. This complicates things significantly, Sarah said, zooming in on the photo. If he's legally married to this woman, your daughter's marriage might not be valid. The room went silent except for the hum of the air conditioning. Margaret reached over and squeezed my hand. I felt like I was falling through space. We need to verify this immediately, Sarah continued, already typing notes. If there's a valid marriage certificate in Arizona or Texas, Emma could be dealing with bigamy charges instead of just adultery. She pulled up public marriage records for Dallas County, then expanded the search to include surrounding areas. It took 20 minutes of searching different databases, different spellings, different date ranges. Finally, she found it. Marcus Thompson and Jessica Martinez, married in Austin, Texas, on September 15th of last year. 6 months before Emma thought she was celebrating her wedding anniversary with her husband. The marriage certificate was official, complete with witness signatures and a registered officiant. Marcus had posed for photos, signed legal documents, and exchanged vows with another woman while Emma was home planning their anniversary dinner. The timeline is clear, Sarah said, printing the certificate. He married Jessica 6 months before your daughter's anniversary celebration. Legally speaking, Emma was never his wife. My hands shook as I stared at the document. Emma had been living a lie for over a year. Every anniversary dinner, every family photo, every time she'd introduced herself as Mrs. Thompson, none of it had been real. Which hits harder, the cheating or the complete lie about who he really is? What does this mean for Emma and the children? I asked. It means she has no legal claim to marital assets, but it also means she's not responsible for any debts he's accumulated. The children complicate things. He's still their legal father regardless of the marriage fraud. Sarah leaned back in her chair, her expression serious. This isn't just a divorce case anymore. This is criminal fraud, bigamy, and identity theft. Emma will need protection, but she'll also need to cooperate with law enforcement. The marriage certificate was dated 6 months before my daughter's wedding anniversary. She wasn't his wife, she was his victim. Every screenshot got saved with timestamps. Every bank record got copied. If this was going to court, I'd make sure my daughter had ammunition. Back home that night, I turned my kitchen table into a war room. File folders, printed emails, bank statements, and legal documents covered every surface. I'd bought a small scanner at Office Depot on the way home. Everything needed to be documented and backed up digitally. Sarah had given me a checklist of evidence to gather. Financial records going back 2 years. All communication between Marcus and Emma. Any documentation of his travel or work claims. Social media posts, phone bills, credit card statements. The phone bills were revealing. Marcus's cell records showed hundreds of calls to Jessica's number, often during times he'd claimed to be in important meetings. The calls started small, 5-minute conversations here and there. But over the past 6 months, they'd grown longer and more frequent. Some lasted hours, usually late at night when Emma was sleeping. Credit card statements told their own story. Restaurant charges for 2 in cities where Marcus claimed to be working alone. Hotel spa services, jewelry purchases, expensive dinners. In February, he'd spent $3,200 at a bridal boutique in Dallas. The same week Emma had been clipping coupons to afford groceries. I cross-referenced every charge with Jessica's social media posts. The timeline matched perfectly. Every expensive dinner showed up in her Instagram stories. Every weekend getaway appeared in her travel photos. She'd been documenting their relationship publicly while Emma remained completely unaware. The hardest part was printing the wedding photos from the Arizona condo listing. Seeing Marcus in that tuxedo, his arm around Jessica, both of them smiling like they'd found true love, it made me physically sick. Emma had no idea those photos existed, no idea her husband had pledged himself to someone else. I organized everything chronologically, creating a timeline that started with Jessica's hiring and ended with the current Arizona property purchase. The pattern was clear and damning. Marcus hadn't just fallen into an affair. He'd systematically planned a second life, funded it with marital assets, and legally committed to another woman while keeping Emma as an unknowing financial provider. Sarah had emphasized the importance of preserving electronic evidence before Marcus realized we were investigating. I logged into every shared account, downloaded statements, and saved screenshots of social media posts that could be deleted later. The most damaging evidence was a series of text messages I found in their shared cloud storage. Marcus and Jessica discussing their real life together versus his obligation to Emma and the children. Jessica calling Emma the babysitter and referring to the kids as his first family responsibilities. What's the most important document in a case like this? Make your guess. One text from Jessica made my blood boil. Can't wait until you can finally divorce her and we can stop pretending. The kids will adjust. They were planning Emma's divorce before she even knew there was a problem. Marcus was going to abandon his children, take half the family assets, and start over with Jessica using money Emma had helped him earn. By midnight, I had everything organized, scanned, and backed up in 3 different locations. Emma's future depended on this evidence, and I wasn't taking any chances of losing it. The final piece arrived in my email, Jessica's divorce decree from a previous marriage. She'd been married before, and never finalized the dissolution properly, making her marriage to Marcus potentially invalid too. My daughter called while folding his laundry. She sounded happy, talking about their anniversary plans. I almost broke right there. Mom, you should see how hard Marcus has been working, Emma said, her voice bright with pride. He's been staying late every night this week, and he's got another big client meeting in Dallas next weekend. I watched her through the kitchen window as she hung his shirts on the line. The same hands that had wrapped his Christmas gift were now caring for his clothes while he built a life with another woman. She moved with the easy efficiency of a wife who trusted completely, folding his socks, arranging his ties. The kids miss him when he travels, but I keep reminding them that Daddy is working hard to give us a better life, she continued. Tommy asked why Daddy can't have meetings here at home, and I explained that sometimes grown-ups have to go far away to make money for the family. My grandson Tommy was 7. Old enough to notice his father's absence but too young to understand betrayal. Emma was protecting the children's image of their father while Marcus systematically destroyed their financial security. He promised to take us somewhere special for our anniversary, Emma went on. Maybe that resort in Michigan we talked about last year. He says this new client could mean a promotion, better benefits for the kids' future. The irony was crushing. Emma was planning their anniversary celebration while I held evidence of Marcus's wedding to another woman. She was excited about a promotion that would fund his second household. She was protecting the children from worry while their college funds disappeared into another woman's lifestyle. Speaking of money, Mom, I wanted to thank you again for helping with groceries last month. Things have been tight with all of Marcus's travel expenses, but he says it's an investment in our future. You'll forget this feeling by tomorrow, but the next betrayal might be closer than you think. Subscribe so you catch the warning signs. I closed my eyes, gripping the phone tighter. Emma was struggling financially while Marcus spent thousands on Jessica. She was thanking me for grocery money while her husband bought another woman a $340,000 condo. Have you talked to Marcus about the travel expenses? I asked carefully. Maybe the company should be covering more of those costs. Oh, he handles all that business stuff. I trust him completely. He's always been so good with money, so responsible. I don't worry about the details as long as the bills get paid. The bills were getting paid because Emma was living on a shoestring budget while Marcus diverted their real income elsewhere. She was cutting back on the children's activities while he funded spa days for Jessica. She was shopping at discount stores while he bought expensive jewelry for his second wife. The kids are doing great too, Emma continued. Lily lost another tooth yesterday, and Tommy scored his first soccer goal. Marcus felt terrible about missing the game, but I recorded it for him. He's such a devoted father when he's home. How long would you wait before telling her the truth? She mentioned his latest business trip, to Arizona. He's looking at investment properties for our future, she said. My heart stopped. He wasn't looking at investment properties for their future. He was visiting the condo he'd already purchased with Jessica, probably planning their next steps while Emma dreamed of family vacations they'd never take. That sounds wonderful, sweetheart, I managed. I'm sure he'll make the right decisions for your family. The attorney's first question wasn't about divorce, it was about whether my daughter knew about the Arizona property. Sarah Chen had spent the weekend reviewing our evidence. Her office felt different this time, more urgent, like we were preparing for battle instead of just gathering information. Margaret sat beside me, her paralegal notepad filled with questions and legal strategies. The bigamy complicates everything, Sarah began, spreading new documents across her desk. I've confirmed the Austin marriage is valid. Marcus Thompson legally married Jessica Martinez while still presenting himself as married to Emma. She pulled up Ohio's bigamy statutes on her computer screen. Bigamy is a felony in Ohio, punishable by up to 5 years in prison. The financial fraud adds additional charges: theft, identity fraud, falsification of documents. My stomach tightened. This wasn't just about protecting Emma anymore. This was about criminal prosecution, jail time, scandal that would follow my grandchildren for years. However, Sarah continued, the invalid marriage actually protects Emma financially. She's not legally responsible for any debts Marcus accumulated during their relationship, and she has stronger claims to assets acquired during their cohabitation. Margaret leaned forward. What about the house? Their joint mortgage? Since Emma believed she was in a legal marriage, she has rights under Ohio's putative spouse doctrine. The house, his retirement accounts, even his business assets, she can claim half of everything accumulated during their relationship. Sarah opened a thick legal folder. I've drafted temporary protection orders. These will freeze all joint accounts, prevent him from selling or transferring the house, and establish temporary custody arrangements for the children. The documents looked official and intimidating. Emergency motions, asset preservation orders, custody petitions. Emma's life was about to change completely, and she still had no idea any of this was happening. The timing is critical, Sarah emphasized. If Marcus realizes we're investigating, he could liquidate accounts, transfer property, or flee to Texas where Jessica has established residency. We need to act before he returns from his current trip. She handed me a timeline written on legal letterhead. File emergency motions on Thursday. Serve Marcus on Friday when he returned from Dallas. Hold emergency custody hearing the following Monday. What about Emma? I asked. When do we tell her? Tomorrow, Sarah said firmly. She needs time to process the information before the legal actions begin. She'll also need to decide whether to cooperate with criminal prosecution. Margaret looked up from her notes. Criminal prosecution? The state may file bigamy charges regardless of Emma's cooperation, but her testimony will be crucial for the financial fraud charges. Marcus stole marital assets to fund his second marriage. That's a serious crime. Predict, what's his next move to hide assets? Sarah pulled out her phone. I'm calling the court clerk now. We need an emergency hearing slot for Thursday morning. While she made the call, I stared out her office window at the parking lot below. Normal people going about their normal lives, unaware that one family was about to implode completely. Emma would wake up tomorrow as a trusting wife and go to bed as the victim of a felony. The lawyer leaned back in her chair. We need to act fast. He's planning to transfer the Ohio house next week. The house Emma thought was their family security was about to become another asset in Marcus's shell game. Every month she'd made those mortgage payments, every dollar she'd put toward their shared future, had been funding his escape plan. We had to tell her before he got home from Arizona. The papers were already drawn up, but she had to sign them first. Margaret offered to be there when I told Emma everything. She'll need support, she said, and having a legal professional present might help her understand the seriousness of the situation. We planned it carefully. Thursday morning, after the kids left for school but before Marcus returned from his latest business trip. Emma would be alone, which was both better and worse. Better because the children wouldn't witness their mother's world falling apart, worse because she'd have to process the betrayal without any distractions. Sarah had prepared a folder for Emma, copies of the marriage certificate, property deeds, bank records, and photos from the Arizona condo. Evidence presented in logical order, building the case step by step so Emma could follow the trail of deception herself. Let her read through everything at her own pace, Sarah advised. Don't try to explain or interpret. The documents speak for themselves. I spent Wednesday night rehearsing what I'd say. How do you tell your daughter that her husband is a criminal? How do you explain that her marriage was never legal, that her children are technically illegitimate, that her financial security was an illusion? Every approach felt wrong. Too gentle, and she might not believe the evidence. Too harsh, and she could go into shock or denial. Margaret suggested starting with the financial discoveries, the mysterious transfers, the Arizona property, and letting Emma ask questions that would lead to the bigger revelations. She's stronger than you think, Margaret reminded me. Emma has always been practical. Once she sees the numbers, she'll understand what needs to happen. The legal timeline was set. Emergency motions would be filed Thursday afternoon, immediately after Emma signed the necessary paperwork. Marcus would be served Friday evening when he returned from Dallas. By Monday, temporary custody orders would be in place, and all joint assets would be frozen. 6 hours to shatter someone's reality, or save their future. What would you prioritize? Sarah had arranged for a victim's advocate to be available if Emma needed counseling support. She'd also contacted Child Protective Services to ensure the kids would be protected during the legal process. Every detail had been considered, every contingency planned. What if she refuses to believe it? I asked during our final planning meeting. What if she thinks I'm making it up or misunderstanding? The evidence is overwhelming, Sarah replied. Marriage certificates don't lie. Property deeds don't lie. Bank records don't lie. She might need time to process, but she can't argue with documentation. Margaret packed a bag with tissues, bottled water, and contact information for counseling services. Some women go into shock, she explained. Others get angry immediately. Emma might cycle through both. I called Emma Wednesday night to confirm our coffee date. Just us girls, I said. I have some things to discuss with you. That sounds nice, Mom. I could use some adult conversation. Marcus has been gone so much lately. After I hung up, I stared at the evidence folder on my kitchen table. Tomorrow, everything would change. Emma would learn that her husband was a stranger, that her marriage was a fraud, that her children's father was a criminal. The call came in, he was coming home early. We had 6 hours to change my daughter's entire world. Marcus had moved his return flight up by 2 days. Instead of coming home Friday evening, he'd be back Thursday night. Our careful timeline was destroyed. We had to tell Emma immediately and file the emergency motions the same day. There was no more time for gentle preparation or careful revelation. Emma's world was about to explode, and we had to make sure she survived the blast. I laid the photos on her kitchen table one by one. The Christmas shirt photo went down last. Emma had made coffee and set out her good china, expecting a normal mother-daughter chat. The morning sun streamed through her kitchen windows, lighting up the family photos on the refrigerator. Pictures of Marcus with the kids, vacation shots from last summer, school artwork held up with colorful magnets. All of it was about to become evidence of a lie. Mom, you look serious, Emma said, settling into her chair. Is everything okay? I started with the bank statements. Sweetheart, I need you to look at these transfer records from your joint savings account. Emma put on her reading glasses, the same ones she'd worn to review the kids' homework the night before. Her finger traced the monthly transfers, her brow furrowing as she calculated the amounts. I don't understand. Marcus never mentioned these transfers. Where is this money going? Dallas, I said quietly. To an account belonging to Jessica Martinez. Emma's face went blank. Jessica from his company? Why would he be sending her money? I placed the hotel receipts next to the bank statements. Then the Arizona property deed. Then Jessica's social media posts showing expensive dinners and weekend trips. Emma read each document slowly, her coffee growing cold as the evidence mounted. This can't be right, she whispered. Marcus wouldn't, he's been working so hard for our family. The hardest document came next. The marriage certificate from Austin, Texas. Marcus Thompson and Jessica Martinez, legally wed 6 months before Emma's anniversary celebration. Emma stared at the certificate for a full minute without speaking. Her hands began to shake. This is fake, she said finally. Someone made this up. Marcus married me. We have the photos, the ceremony, the... Emma, I said gently, your marriage to Marcus was never legal. He was already married to Jessica when he went through the ceremony with you. This blind spot cost them years of deception. Don't miss the warning signs. Subscribe for protection strategies that actually work. The Christmas shirt photo went down last, the screenshot from the video call that had started everything. Emma looked at the image of her husband with another woman wearing the gift she'd helped choose, wrap, and give with love. That's when she broke. The crying came in waves. Deep, painful sobs that seemed to come from somewhere beyond heartbreak. This wasn't just about cheating anymore. This was about the complete destruction of everything she'd believed about her life. Margaret moved to Emma's side, offering tissues and gentle support. I sat across the table, watching my daughter's world collapse and hating every second of it. The kids, Emma gasped between sobs. What about the kids? Are they even? Are we even? You're still their mother, I said firmly. Marcus is still their legal father. That doesn't change. But the rest of it, we need to protect what's left. Emma wiped her eyes and looked at the evidence again. This time, her expression shifted from grief to something harder. Anger was setting in, replacing the shock. How long have you known? She asked. 6 days. I wanted to be sure, wanted to have everything documented before I told you. Through her tears, my daughter said 5 words that changed everything. What about the kids' college fund? I handed her the final bank statement showing the children's education accounts. Nearly empty. Marcus had been systematically draining every family savings account to fund his second life. The moment reality hits hardest, when you realize it's not just about you anymore. Emma stood up from the table, walked to the window, and stared out at the backyard where her children played every day. When she turned back, her tears had stopped. What do we do now? The papers were served while he was still in Arizona. Jessica answered the door at the condo, wearing my daughter's jewelry. Sarah Chen had coordinated everything perfectly. While Emma signed emergency custody petitions in Ohio, a process server in Scottsdale was delivering legal documents to the Arizona condo. The timing was crucial. Marcus needed to be served before he could return home and start moving assets. The process server's report came through Sarah's office at 3:47 p.m. Female subject answered door, identified herself as Mrs. Thompson, accepted service on behalf of Marcus Thompson. Subject appeared agitated, asked multiple questions about Ohio legal proceedings. Mrs. Thompson. Jessica was using Emma's married name while living in the home Marcus had purchased with Emma's money. The audacity was staggering. But it was the photo the process server had discreetly taken that made Emma's hands clench into fists. Jessica at the door, wearing the diamond earrings Marcus had given Emma for their last anniversary. Earrings Emma had admired, worn to family dinners, treasured as a symbol of their love. Marcus had given his legal wife's jewelry to his criminal wife. The legal actions moved quickly once the papers were filed. Emergency asset freeze, granted. Temporary custody order, granted. Exclusive use of the family home, granted. Ohio courts took bigamy seriously, especially when children were involved. Marcus's bank accounts were frozen within hours. The joint credit cards were canceled. His business accounts were flagged for review. Sarah had built an airtight case, and the legal system responded accordingly. The Arizona property is more complicated, Sarah explained during an emergency phone conference. Since it was purchased with marital funds during a valid cohabitation period, Emma has claim to it, but Jessica's name is also on the deed. Emma sat in Sarah's office, still processing the rapid legal changes. So she gets to keep half of what Marcus bought with our money? Not necessarily. If we can prove the down payment came from accounts Marcus accessed through fraudulent means, Jessica could be charged as an accessory. She'd have to prove she didn't know the money was stolen. Legal threats or empty bluster? How would you respond? Marcus's lawyer called at 5:23 p.m. Sarah put the call on speaker so Emma could hear the desperation in the opposing counsel's voice. Ms. Chen, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Mr. Thompson's business arrangements in Texas are completely separate from his Ohio family obligations. Sarah's response was ice-cold professional. Mr. Davidson, your client committed felony bigamy and systematic theft of marital assets. The only misunderstanding is if he thinks this will be resolved quietly. My client is prepared to discuss reasonable asset division and support arrangements. Your client should be prepared to discuss plea bargains with the district attorney. Bigamy carries a 5-year sentence in Ohio. The line went quiet. Marcus's lawyer hadn't expected criminal charges. Most bigamy cases were civil matters, handled through divorce court. But the financial fraud elevated this to criminal territory. "We'll need time to review the allegations," Davidson said finally. "Your client has until Monday morning to respond to the custody petition. After that, we proceed with criminal referrals." His lawyer called within an hour. The first words: "Your client doesn't understand what she's starting." Emma looked at Sarah, then at me. For the first time since the revelation, she smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of a woman who'd found her backbone. "Tell them we understand exactly what we're starting," Emma said. "We're starting justice." His return was swift and desperate. The gaslighting started immediately. I was the manipulative mother-in-law causing problems. Marcus walked into the house at 11 p.m. Thursday night, 12 hours after being served in Arizona. He'd caught the first available flight, probably hoping to get home before Emma fully understood the legal implications. Emma was ready for him. She'd spent the afternoon with Sarah and Margaret, preparing for this confrontation. The kitchen table was cleared of evidence, the house looked normal, the children were asleep upstairs. But Emma's phone was recording, and I was waiting in the guest room in case she needed support. "Hey baby, I'm home early," Marcus called out, his voice artificially cheerful. "Surprise." "I know about Jessica," Emma said simply. The silence lasted 10 seconds. I could hear it from upstairs, the complete absence of sound as Marcus processed that his carefully constructed lie had finally collapsed. "Emma, I can explain. It's not what you think." And there it was. The first line of defense every cheater uses. It's not what you think. As if Emma's thoughts were the problem instead of his criminal behavior. "It's exactly what I think," Emma replied, her voice steady. "You married her in Austin 6 months before our anniversary. You bought her a condo with our kids' college money. You've been stealing from our family to fund your second life. Your mother has been filling your head with paranoid theories. She's always hated me, always tried to turn you against me. Manipulation tactics repeat across families. Subscribe to recognize them before they work." I wanted to march downstairs and defend myself, but this wasn't about me. This was Emma's moment to stand up to the man who'd been lying to her for over a year. "My mother didn't create the marriage certificate," Emma said. "She didn't forge the property deed or fake the bank records. She just found what you left behind." Marcus tried a different approach. "Look, yes, I made mistakes. But I was trying to protect you. The situation with Jessica got complicated, but I was handling it. I was going to tell you everything once I got it sorted out." Classic abuser language. The situation got complicated, as if bigamy happened accidentally. He was handling it, as if systematic theft was responsible financial planning. He was going to tell her as if more lies would fix the existing lies. "The kids are asking why Daddy's suitcase is packed," Emma said. "What should I tell them?" "What suitcase?" "Emma, I just got home. The one you packed before you left for Arizona. The one with enough clothes for a permanent move. Did you think I wouldn't notice?" I smiled despite the circumstances. Emma had been paying attention to details Marcus thought she'd miss. While he was planning his escape, she was documenting his preparation. "You don't understand the business pressures I'm under," Marcus tried again. "Sometimes a man has to make difficult choices to provide for his family." "Which family?" Emma asked. "The one here in Ohio, or the one you married in Texas?" What discovery could make this case even bigger? The detective called at midnight. "Ma'am, we found something else in Arizona. You need to see this." Emma answered the phone while Marcus stood in the kitchen, finally realizing that his wife wasn't going to be manipulated into silence. "This is Emma Thompson. What did you find?" Jessica wasn't wife number 2. The detective's file showed 3 marriage certificates across 2 states, none of them legal. The Phoenix Police Department had been investigating Jessica Martinez for identity theft when our legal actions intersected with their criminal case. Detective Rodriguez's phone call changed everything we thought we knew about Marcus's betrayal. Mrs. Thompson, your husband and his associate have been running a marriage fraud scheme for over 3 years. You're victim number 4 that we know of. Emma sank into the living room chair, phone pressed to her ear, while Marcus stood frozen in the doorway. He couldn't hear the detective's words, but he could see Emma's face changing as the full scope of his crimes became clear. Jessica Martinez isn't her real name, Detective Rodriguez continued. She's Patricia Valdez, originally from New Mexico. She's wanted on charges of identity theft, bigamy, and financial fraud in 3 states. The pattern was sophisticated and calculated. Jessica, Patricia, would target successful married men, seduce them into second marriages, then systematically drain their accounts while the legal wives remained unaware. Marcus wasn't a cheating husband. He was a criminal accomplice in an organized fraud scheme. Your husband provided false information on multiple marriage applications. He used different social security numbers, fabricated employment records, and created fake identification documents. This goes far beyond simple bigamy. Emma looked at Marcus with new understanding. He wasn't just an unfaithful spouse who'd gotten in too deep. He was a career criminal who'd been using their family as cover for illegal activities. The Arizona property was purchased with funds stolen from at least 2 other victims, the detective explained. We've traced wire transfers from bank accounts in Nevada, California, and Texas. Your husband and his partner have stolen over $400,000 from unsuspecting families. Would you take the stand to protect other families from this predator? Marcus tried to leave. Emma blocked the doorway. You're not going anywhere until the police get here, she said, her voice stronger than I'd ever heard it. Emma, you don't understand. This is bigger than us. There are people involved who won't tolerate interference. For the first time, he sounded genuinely frightened. Not afraid of losing Emma or the kids, but afraid of something else. Someone else. Detective Rodriguez had warned Emma about this. Criminal organizations don't like loose ends. Your husband might be more afraid of his partners than he is of prison. The Phoenix investigation had been building for 8 months. Wire fraud, identity theft, interstate crime, the charges carried federal penalties. Marcus and Jessica weren't small-time con artists. They were part of a network that had victimized families across the Southwest. The FBI will want to interview you, Detective Rodriguez said. Your evidence has been crucial in building the federal case. Emma hung up the phone and looked at Marcus, really looked at him, for the first time in years. The man she'd married, the father of her children, was a stranger who'd been using their family as a front for organized crime. How many other women? She asked quietly. Marcus didn't answer. He didn't need to. The detective's file had already provided that information. 3 previous marriages, all fraudulent. 7 children with different mothers. Hundreds of thousands in stolen assets. The prosecutor smiled. Your evidence makes this case ironclad. But we need you to testify. Emma stood up, walked to the front window, and watched the police cars pulling into their driveway. Red and blue lights reflected off the neighbors' houses, announcing to everyone that the Thompson family's normal life was officially over. When she turned back, Marcus was already in handcuffs. Yes, Emma told the prosecutor. I'll testify. 1 year later, my daughter signed the deed to a house she chose herself. The kids picked their own rooms, and nobody had to ask permission. The federal trial had taken 8 months. Marcus pleaded guilty to wire fraud, bigamy, identity theft, and conspiracy charges. He received 12 years in federal prison, with restitution orders that would follow him for the rest of his life. Jessica, Patricia, received 15 years. Her previous victims testified about years of financial devastation, destroyed credit, and emotional trauma. Emma's evidence had been the key to connecting all the cases and building the conspiracy charges. The media attention was intense but brief. Local family exposes multi-state marriage fraud ring, made headlines for a week, then disappeared as other news took over. Emma handled the interviews with dignity, focusing on protecting other families rather than seeking revenge. The financial recovery was complicated but ultimately successful. The Arizona condo was sold, with proceeds divided among all the victims. Emma received $180,000 in restitution, not everything Marcus had stolen, but enough to rebuild. The Ohio house sold quickly. Emma said she couldn't live somewhere with so many memories of lies. Instead, she found a smaller place across town, close to the kids' school, with a backyard perfect for soccer practice and summer barbecues. Tommy and Lily adjusted better than anyone expected. Children are resilient when they feel safe, and Emma worked hard to provide stability during the chaos. Family counseling helped them process their father's absence without blaming themselves. Daddy made bad choices, Emma explained to them. That doesn't mean he doesn't love you, but it means he can't live with us anymore. Margaret helped Emma through the legal procedures, the paperwork, the endless details of rebuilding a life. Sarah Chen became more than a lawyer. She became a friend who understood the unique challenges of fraud victims. I moved closer to Emma and the kids after the trial ended. Not into their new house, Emma needed her independence, but close enough to help with school pickups, homework supervision, and the occasional emergency babysitting. What would you preserve for a future you may never see? Emma started college classes again, something she'd put on hold when the children were born. Business administration with a focus on financial crimes prevention. I want to help other women recognize the warning signs, she said. She spoke at victim advocacy conferences, sharing her story and the investigative techniques that had exposed Marcus's crimes. Other wives reached out, asking for advice about suspicious financial activity or unexplained travel patterns. The Christmas shirt became a teaching tool. Emma kept it in a frame in her office, along with the screenshot that had started everything. Evidence, she would tell other women, that mothers always know first. If you're not subscribing, comment why below, but remember, the next warning sign might be in your own family. The kids thrived in their new environment. Tommy joined Little League and discovered he was good at pitching. Lily started piano lessons and filled the house with music. Both children learned that families could survive terrible betrayals and come back stronger. Emma never spoke bitterly about Marcus in front of the children. She focused on building their future rather than dwelling on the past. The divorce was finalized quietly, with full custody and continued financial protection. One evening, as we sat on Emma's front porch watching the kids play in the yard, she said something that stayed with me. They didn't applaud loudly. They nodded like people who finally understood. I used to think trust was about believing in someone completely, Emma said. Now I know trust is about believing in yourself enough to recognize when something's wrong. Share the one sign you'd never ignore when protecting someone you love. Open sky, cool air, the story finally written in a hand that won't be erased.